What's so unusual about Asher Chaim, his neshama comes through in his eyes. I happen to have met him in his setting prior to Sinai. I observed him in his public school class. You see this beautiful, beautiful Jewish child with this neshama that's just screaming at you.
In 2008, Hashem sent me a very difficult nisayon. Asher Chaim was starting to have a few issues that I didn't know where they were coming from. I went and they evaluated him, and then they say, we're suspecting, PDD and Asperger's and autism, and I was like, blindsided wouldn't even be the word. So I remember sitting there in the meeting, and them telling all these things, and I didn't know what to do. And I'm sure, like every parent, I went into denial. Can't be Asher Chaim. So they placed him in a public school, but after the second year, his needs started to just become much greater than what the public school could handle. And I had a friend who always had in the back of her head, Sinai's the perfect place. But she never brought it up because she knew, like, as a single mother, and Sinai is amazing, but it's very, very expensive. So she said, let's just go to Sinai. Let's just see what they have to say. I mean, they might not even accept him. I was very nervous. The day I got accepted was elation. It was like, oh, thank God. Okay, this is where he needs to be, And then slowly the weight of like, oh, how am I gonna pay for this? And that's when my best friend told me, Hadassah, that's it. Now is the time to tell your story. My father is a minister, very, very prominent in the Latin Spanish community in California. He's actually the first Christian minister to be on television back in like the 70s, early 70s. He's been on radio for well over 20 years and has a huge following. Every once in a while he'd say, oh, can you do a TV spot for me? Just an introduction. So I'd say, y ahora con ustedes, el doctor Terry Moran, So people know my voice as, Daisy Lee Moran, which isn't how I say my name in Spanish. My family's very musical. And when I was about 18, I went to community college. So I thought, okay, I'll take a voice class. And turns out the voice teacher was an opera singer. She said the most beautiful compliment, you have the most beautiful voice I've ever heard. She said, oh, you should take voice lessons. So I took lessons, and after a year with him, he said, you should audition for USC. And we worked up to it, and it was very, very intimidating, but I got in based on my audition. And then the rest is history. Opera is amazing. I breathed and lived and walked, everything was music. And then everything kind of got very interesting at that point, where I kind of just started questioning a lot of what was going on, and I left my father's church, and I went to an American church. And that worked for a while, but I was not doing well. And I thought, well, maybe I need to just do some research and find out, basics of Christianity and who the figure, where he came from, and, well, he came from Judaism. All right, so I'm gonna look into Judaism. And that kind of literally, that's how everything started. And I changed, and I started, learning about, Yiddishkeit and becoming Jewish. But I still had to come across that whole Kol Isha issue of not singing in front of men, and not, the whole singing issue. And when I would go to Shabbos tables, they would say, oh, what do you do? I'm like, I'm an opera singer. And they'd be like, oh, that's nice, really uncomfortable. And I couldn't figure out where this is coming from. And here, I'm gearing up for the competition circuit and looking into opera houses in Vienna. I don't know, this is it took me a while to really sit and understand what that meant in the scheme of things. It wasn't an overnight thing, for sure. So my Geirus was the 10th of Av. It was day right after Tisha B'Av. It was Erev Shabbos. And I chose the name Hadassah Naami. So after I became Jewish, I stopped the singing altogether. So for her to tell me, now's the time. You need to tell your story. She's like, bungalow colonies are always looking for, entertainment at night. And I thought about it for a day. And I'm like, okay, if that's what I have to do, that's what I have to do. And I wrote a song of a little bit of my life story called Who Was I? And that, Baruch Hashem, that is literally what snowballed into okay, I'm going to all these bungalow colonies. Sometimes I had 2 a day. I miss singing opera, but I'm really doing what I trained to do. I'm writing all this music, and now the sole way I paid for SINAI last year was through the performing, with the help of of scholarship, but still, like, it's still pretty up there. But Baruch Hashem, that's been the only way I've been able to do it.
When I first met Asher Chaim, he was a child who was very much in his own world. There's a spectrum when you're talking about autism. He's very bright, but he has a hard time socially engaging appropriately.
The challenge with Asher Chaim is that he has tremendous talents and gifts, but right now those gifts are wrapped in packages, and we slowly but surely take one layer off at a time.
I met him for the first time when he came in as his OT screening for school. And he came in with his mom, and it's hard for him to sit down, so we did a lot of movement. I remember sweating a lot.
And he was just all over the place, fidgety and moving around, and it was just very overwhelming. And then she did something to help him out, and it immediately calmed him down.
It came up at one point that he really likes to build, and I told him, well, I needed someone to help design a new kitchen. And then he sat down for me, and he started to draw, and his talent started to unfold, and he started to hum, and then he drew out the most fabulous kitchen, and then he started to talk to me.
I'm like, this is the place. This is where I need to be.
And this kind of night is nighttime. This kind of night is a night that fights the dragon.
Art is a real medium for him to communicate, and sometimes it seems like that's our window into his brain.
Asher Chaim is somebody who looks around, observes the world around him, takes it in, and he can recreate it in his drawing.
And the thing that's so much fun about him is that he really has a whole creative personality. So that's the thing we work with. We build art into his reading program, and he's illustrating the things he's reading about, and then he's writing about his illustrations. He's pushing everything to the next level.
Everything's on a continuum. So the things that Asher Chaim was struggling with a year ago or 2 years ago are still the things that he struggles with now. But he's moved up a few steps.
Just through the year of finally having the right therapists and the right curriculum, his change has been remarkable.
He seems to be gaining interest in his peers and making friends with his peers in a way that is different than it has been in the past. It's nice to see that emerging.
And for the first time, he was learning Jewish studies. First time he came home and told me something about the Parsha, I was like bawling. And we davened together for the first time. I was blown away, He's really becoming like a little mensch. He's engaging now, he's talking back, and the first time that was overwhelming for me, I was getting ready for Shabbos. I had my Shabbos robe on, I had, my earrings and my sheitel and everything, and he's like, Mommy, you look very pretty. I was like, really? Not to mention, like, wow, it's the first man to tell me that in a long time. But just for him to notice it, little tiny diamonds every once in a while, and I'm like, okay, he's really getting it.
I just feel so happy for him that he's in this place. From his classroom teachers to the therapists to the directors, there's just a huge appreciation for who he is, the gifts that he has, and who he could become. And we have to just keep working and working and working, because the world might be different if Asher Chaim is developed.
Not only are his needs being met, but emotionally, they've been there for me. It means the world to me, especially, because I don't have that second person, at night to just tell everything to. And I really wish the staff at Sinai could understand the impact they've made in my life. And I don't know if there's any way I could ever say it. Just exactly tell them how they've impacted my life, my son's life. And I'm so grateful to them.
Thank you for sending me to Sinai School. I love it.